Microsoft has announced the next version of the once mighty Exchange server. I spent quite a few years as the lead messaging consultant at a Microsoft partner, so this sort of announcement gets my interest. But I'll admit I had doubts. You see, for the past decade or so, Microsoft has pretty much left the on-premises Exchange server to rot in their relentless pursuit of cloud-first subscription revenue. The most recent version was more notable for the features it removed than those it added, and it could be argued that their lack of investment contributed to some of the most catastrophic security breaches in recent history. So is this new version of Exchange going to turn things around and make me enthusiastic about it once again? Well, I read the announcement, and it's about as exciting as an invitation to a vegan barbecue. They've rebranded it to Exchange Server Subscription Edition, but they might as well have called it Exchange Server Can't Be Arsed Edition. There was, I think, an amount of expectation riding on this one. With the release of Exchange 2013, Microsoft shifted the development model. Exchange was no longer an on-premises product that they also installed in Cloudland. It was now developed first and foremost for the cloud, and then packaged up for on-premises release. Significant updates came every quarter to facilitate rapid delivery of features at cloud pace. I mean, they sort of did it for a while, but it turns out it's really hard to reliably deliver such a large amount of change to a diverse ecosystem of on-premises systems compared to a homogeneous cloud service under your direct control. And let's face it, Office 365 isn't exactly known for great reliability in the first place. So they basically just gave up and started dropping features, so the on-prem version fell further and further behind. Exchange 2016 was basically a more robust version of 2013, and Exchange 2019 was Exchange 2016 with some features missing. And utterly laughable system requirements that honestly seemed completely made up to scare you into buying a cloud subscription. These are just nonsense. I deployed a whole bunch of these things, and I just sized it like 2016 because that's all it really is. Here's where it starts to get weird though. Exchange Server, like most Microsoft products, has a 10-year-ish life cycle. The first 5 years are mainstream support, where it gets full performance, compatibility, and feature updates. After that, you get a further 5 years of security updates, but no guarantee of forward compatibility. This is the extended support phase. With Exchange 2019, they cut this short. They chopped 3 years off the end so that Exchange 2019's end of extended support matches that of Exchange 2016. This led people to wonder if there would be no further versions of Exchange Server, but Microsoft were keen to quash such rumours. There will be a new version of Exchange Server landing late in 2021. That's what they said, and this tracked with the expected release of Exchange 2022 following their usual 3-year cycle. Except, I don't know, they seem to have forgotten to release it or something, because it never actually materialised, and Exchange 2019 continued marching towards its shorter than expected end of life. We're now at the point where there is no version of Exchange Server under mainstream support. The 2022 release never happened, and if they had been sticking to the 3-year cycle, Exchange 2025 should be arriving in about 6 months' time. So the announcement of a new version is kind of a big deal for anyone still running Exchange Server on premises, and there are plenty. Anecdotally, I would say that most companies have moved Exchange to the cloud by now, but on-prem still exists, and frankly, it's more reliable. Exchange Server, if deployed properly, is solid. It's rarely deployed properly because it's so bloody complicated that the average IT person with 1,000 other plates to spin just doesn't have the time to learn it properly, but that's another conversation. So what have they announced for Exchange Server 2022? I mean, Exchange Server 2025. I mean, Exchange Server Subscription Edition. Well, it's going to arrive a little later than would have been typical. Microsoft products usually arrive late in the year before the one they're named after. Exchange 2019, for example, arrived near the end of 2018. Exchange Server Subscription Edition would have been the 2025 release expected at the end of 2024, but it's planned to arrive in Q3 of 2025. That's actually a problem, because thanks to Exchange 2019's shortened lifespan, every remaining version of Exchange goes end of life early in Q4 of 2025. Best case, you have a couple of months to plan, test, and execute an upgrade from the moment of its release. Given a tendency for the dates to slip, you may only have weeks. A lot of the organizations still running Exchange Server are, how do I put this, not used to quick turnarounds, and this one looks set to be a rush job. Will it be worth it for the features though? Will the subscription edition bring Exchange Server back up to par with Exchange Online? According to Microsoft, it will be code equivalent to Exchange 2019. In other words, it is exactly the same thing you already have. The What's Changed list for the next version of Exchange Server is as follows: the license agreement, the name, the build and version number. That's it. I'm not even joking. This is not me taking the piss. This is literally all they're changing. I'm reading this from their announcement. They even clarify that it is the exact same code, their words, as Exchange 2019. DKIM? No. DMARC, MTA TLS, Native SAML or OpenID Connect or FIDO2? No, nothing. It's the same thing you've already bought. You just get to pay for it again. I suppose what you're really paying for is continued security updates. But even that feels a little hollow when you remember they cut 3 years of security updates off the end of 2019 in the first place. There are some new features mentioned in the announcement. Technically, they're new features for Exchange 2019, and the subscription edition will simply inherit them. But let it not be said they gave us nothing. Exchange 2019 CU15 will receive support for Windows Server 2025, TLS 1.3, and management of certificates via the web interface. As an update to an existing product, fair enough, but as a stand-in for a major version upgrade, it's pretty underwhelming. Of course, support for Windows Server 2025 is a new feature because Windows Server 2025 hasn't been released yet, but it's not really adding anything to Exchange. Certificate management is welcome, but it's not a new feature. It was already there, then they broke it a couple of updates back, and all they're actually doing is fixing the thing they broke. As for TLS 1.3, good to see it finally arrive, but it's been available in OpenSSL for nearly 6 years, and that's free. There's also a change to instant messaging support. They're removing it. This is still an Exchange 2019 mind, so yeah, hope you aren't using that. I mean, look, the next version of Exchange Server looks set to be a minimal effort affair that basically just ensures that you have a way to keep giving Microsoft your on-prem money. Should you upgrade then? Well, if you're planning to run Exchange Server anyway, then yes, you're going to have to upgrade or you'll leave yourself open to who knows what vulnerabilities, and you're going to have a fairly narrow window of time to do it. If you're unsure whether to stick with on-prem or move to the cloud, just do what Microsoft clearly wants you to do and move to Exchange Online. You can't avoid a subscription by staying on-prem anymore, and it's just going to fall further and further behind in terms of features. There is still an argument that on-prem is more reliable. But my observation on that is that while most organizations will tell you that email is a business-critical service, it's rarely time-critical. If you send an email and it gets delayed for a couple of hours while Office 365 has some kind of spasm, who's to say the recipient would even have read it yet anyway had it arrived? If it was that urgent, it shouldn't have been an email. But hey, if you still want an on-premises email solution that doesn't completely suck, and you don't want to pay for an upgrade to Exchange 2013 Release 4, I do have an open source option that might be worth a look, and I'll be putting a video about it right here in the coming weeks, so make sure you're subscribed. Let me know your thoughts. Was I too harsh? Were you excited about this announcement? Have you moved to the cloud and just left this all behind? Comment below and click that like button to cheer me up. I need it after reading this drivel.